3, 2, 1.
You are listening to Latino Living,
Is it recording right?
a podcast about the life of Latinos in Naydu, Louisiana. Este podcast es parte de HSJA and NSU. During each episode, we will share with you una historia about Hispanic living in this corner of Louisiana.
I am Alison Flores, your editor.
I am Isabel Juarez, your assistant producer.
I am Naydu Daza, your host.
I'm Portillo, your producer.
And this is Latino Living,
Un podcast para todos.
Hola a todos, estamos aquí. We're back with Latino Living in a third episode that is called Big Latina Sister. For today's episode, Leah and I are bringing you two guests. One of them is our expert, and the other one is a student who is also a part of this podcast and the program, and she also comes to school here at NSU.
Our first guest is Ronnie Bisco, NSU's Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness and Human Resources. We brought her to the podcast because after listening to her talk during the First Generation panel we had over a month ago celebrating First Generation Day, we realized how impactful her message was to the Hispanic community, and being a first gen and also being the first one in her family as a big sister, the first granddaughter, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, we also decided to bring this topic because I think it's very important to highlight the importance of big sisters, big Latina sisters on the immigrant community here in the United States, not just NSU. And on this case, I found it very interesting because, I've seen all over social media, like on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere, where people are talking like, oh, tell me the trauma or tell me all these hardships that you have to go through when you were the big sister, the big Latina sister. In this case, you're immigrating and, you're the first in your family to get out there. And a lot of the time, we also hear how the big sister is helping their parents to translate and, move around in the country, understand things, even going to doctor's appointments, and being the ones that are helping their parents to, stay here in the States and make it work and understanding how things are working. So I think this is a very important topic that some people don't really think of, how that cultural differences can affect our Hispanic culture and how the big sister, plays a big part on it.
And I think big sister in every culture sort of differs, but it also takes the toll of this journey where you're the first one trying to understand and trying to excel and carry these legacies within your family. So Naydu, I know you're the older sister in your family. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, being as the older sister in my family, it's my brother and I. I also have an older brother, but it's different. I grew up with just my brother and I. And being the older sister, I think it gives you that sense of independence because you always want to, push yourself more, give more. You always want to get the approval of your parents. You want to be perfect, basically. And you also want to leave a legacy for in my case, my brother. I want him to be, to know that you can make things possible, you can make things happen. And if you have a role model that is your sister in this case, that, hey, she can do all these things, wait, I cannot do them, So I think it's that pressure that you have. And also as coming here, when I moved here to the United States by myself, that also gives you a more sense of independence, that you have to carry everything and you have to make everybody proud because they're putting all this effort, investment on you, and then you have to work hard to show that it was worth it. So I think being a big sister is definitely hard, but it's rewarding. You get to learn a lot of things, and you get to have your family also relying on you because you're growing and you're the first one out there that is making it happen.
And I think also that being an older sister sort of translates into the workplace or anywhere you go, really, in social groups. Sometimes the older sisters are considered the mom of the group, or even when Dr. Bisco was talking, she was sort of talking about how like her older sister qualities translate to her in the workplace. So having to make sure that just because she is, you know, the older sister or because she's a woman, that she's still heard, that despite everything, she's still important and she's useful in the workplace. So how do you think it might translate into your own workplace?
I think in my own workplace, it definitely helped me being a leader, how to like take things whenever we have struggles. And that's something very important that she also mentions it. How has been a big sister, big granddaughter, like the first one in her family, help her work, you know, with other people, because it's not just her. It's also the way that she interacts with the people that are coming in or the people that are already in the office. So I think that's something that she mentioned and it's very important, and we can also hear more about it with her.
So I always had a good image of I can do this, and I always had family members who said I could. So transferring that to the workplace, sometimes days are hard here. It's a lot of work with the things that we do. I deal with a lot of complaints that come in from faculty and non-faculty alike against students, but it's helped me to be firm in my decision. I think being that oldest girl, you have an intuition about how things are, and it helps you dig deeper. So I also see that women in general, firstborn, tend to be leaders. Maybe we're a little bit pushy sometimes too, but I don't see that as pushy. I see that as determined, because sometimes you do have to speak a little louder if you're a woman. It's changing though, so I think that's good. But if you're a Hispanic woman too, that's helpful. I think that people sometimes, I'll just say this, if we didn't grow up speaking English first, sometimes there's a little bit of an accent. And people equate an accent with being not smart. And those two don't equal. So I hope I help people understand that it's not about how a person speaks or looks, you know, that we have our dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin. It doesn't matter. We're intelligent. And that's what I hope I can provide to people whom I work with, supervise, or oversee in some way. But it's helped me in my career by being helpful.
Okay, but we cannot forget that our other guest is also one of our very own, Isabel Juarez. And we also wanted to hear, she's actually a big sister, and she also had a lot of things to say about it. One of the main points that she pointed out was also the big responsibility that you have to take and the legacy that you leave on your brother, something I was saying earlier, because, you know, as being the big sister in her case, she had her other brothers and her other parents, like her other family members to, you know, look out to her and look after her. So we can hear what she has to say about it.
An older sister is like really hard, but I think it's like even harder if you're from an immigrant household, because you're like automatically born into a lot of responsibility. Like for me, I didn't really like grasp the concept whenever I was younger, or like whenever I was growing up in Mexico, because I mean I was like 9, so I didn't understand a lot of things there. But once I immigrated here, like it kind of hit me, because like my mom was pregnant and she gave birth here whenever we like got here, like the first like month. So I automatically was expected to take care of the other children and help my mom out a lot, because she got sick whenever she had my baby sister. Like she got really sick and she had a C-section, so she couldn't also like move a lot. So I was like in charge of a newborn at the age of 9, and then like in charge of like learning a new language and getting used to like, you know, the change from Mexico to here. So it was really, really hard growing up. And like even now that I'm like also a first gen, I'm like paving the way for them, and it's been really difficult and hard, and it's had a lot of challenge, and it has definitely shaped my personality and who I became and who I am today. And it's going to continue to do so, obviously, because this title is never going to go away.
Yeah, Isa was really actually very excited when Naydu pitched this episode idea. She was like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. So it was like a no-brainer to have her on the podcast and like try to, you know, actually talk about it. But I think one of the biggest thing that we found within like talking to Isa was that her perception, or like Hispanic family's perception of what a big sister is, and like the female role. Like for Isa, paving the way, having to get an associate's degree while she was still in high school was something really big for her. But so she's doing this for her family, but oftentimes she feels like while she's like advancing her family, she's sort of limiting her siblings because they have to do better or just as equal as her. So what do you think about that, Naydu?
Well, I think it's definitely, that's something big whenever you are trying to do big steps, but you also want your family to succeed. You also want your brothers to do better than you. So she also mentioned how worried she was that maybe she was setting up expectations for her family. And like her parents, like, I'm really proud of you and I want you to do well, but maybe if her path was going to college and she was going to be happy with it, but maybe her brothers or her sister, her, younger siblings, like that's not what they wanted. Maybe they wanted to follow something else. So she also mentioned how scared she was of changing the perspective of what they had to do since she has gone to college. She's the big sister. She's making it, she's doing a great job here in college. So what if they don't want to do that? So she was also scared about that. She, as a big sister, you always want to encourage your siblings, your brothers, sisters, anyone else, that they can do whatever they want and they can do great because, you want to trust them and they also see you as a role model. But you never want to make anybody feel less. Like if you didn't do the same that I did, you don't have to feel bad. You have to feel good because you're doing your own thing, even though your own thing is not going to college. So I think that was something like a really hard thing to talk about. Is like, you have this balance on what should I do and what should my family do after me.
Yeah, and I feel like when we talk about the older or big sister syndrome, we relate it a lot to Hispanic culture because we take on that Hispanic aspect and also, just like in that immigrant aspect that comes with it, especially for Isa. And but it's not exclusive to Hispanic families. I know there's a lot of people feel like being the older sibling is like comes with a lot of sacrifices and with a lot of responsibilities. And it's something that we can all relate to. Like I'm also an older sister, like I have an older brother, but that path, because we have such a big age gap, was really lonely trying to navigate school whenever he already went through all of this stuff and he doesn't remember it. So, but also having all of this knowledge so that I could help my other siblings is kind of like something. It's like, as the older sister, we can't just forget. We have to remember so that we can help them do better and be better. And, it's different. It may look different for other cultures, but I think it's something that it's very prevalent just in society in general, how we put all of this weight and all of these expectations onto older siblings.
Yeah, that was definitely my case because my older brother, he didn't really grow up with me. He's 10, 11 years older than I am. So I didn't really have anyone but my parents. So I was like, hey, how do I do this? How do I figure this out? And a lot of the times when it comes to school, I always try to do everything by myself. I didn't really want any help. And that's something that you tend to see on these big sisters and, the community in general. And also that's something like the internet has been exposing lately. Like, oh, tell me the time that you were a big sister and what happened. Like, what was the highlight of you being a big sister in your family? And then they will come with all these stories that, as I said earlier, you had to go with your parents because they couldn't understand. That's in the case when you are immigrant here and your family don't speak the language. So that's really strong, and I think it needs to be more talked about. It's also important to keep mental health and the awareness that it comes with having big responsibilities. But it's something really beautiful though, because you all have the independence and the leadership skills to, go in and be strong and figure this out. And no matter how hard it gets, you're always going to figure it out. And being able to support your younger siblings and your family, I think that's something that is priceless. And I think we can all agree as being big sisters on it.
I think that being the older sister or the big sister, it's something really beautiful. And like you said, we do have to take into account that we should take care of our mental health. And it can really be hard sometimes, having to carry this legacy, having to carry this weight, having to be the first one, sort of be a pioneer into this sort of the world. And so I think it's really important for us to take a step back and take care of ourselves.
I support what you say, Leah. I think that in the Hispanic culture, mental health and, mental health awareness in general is something that it gets stigmatized instead of being something that we strive to fit. And, you know, like it doesn't be seen as something real sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, you just don't feel good and you're crazy and that's it. You live in there. But when it comes to this and, you know, all these generational things that keep being passed from one person to the other one, it's very important to keep these things in mind. And that's something that also Dr. Ronnie, she also mentioned an advice on how to, you know, move forward and keep going whenever this stuff happens. And you have to carry a lot of pressures by yourself.
So whenever you're feeling the pressure of being an older sister or an older sibling, just remember that it's okay for you to not be okay. And that is why Dr. Bisco gave us an advice. And here's her advice now.
I do say is that there might have been times when I was a little bit frustrated that I had to tote my brother around, but embrace being an older sister, because even though there's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, it will prepare you for the workplace. It will prepare you for having a family of your own or not. And it is a beautiful thing for people to entrust you to care for others, to be part of decision making, because it's, to me, trust, that's the ultimate. I mean, I say embrace it and use it as a tool to move forward, because it will provide you with the baseline that you need to advance in your career, because you will be able to make sound decisions on your own, but you'll also be able to collaborate and you will be comfortable with who you are.
Well, Leah, I think this topic is one of our, well, at least to me, it's been one of my favorites ones so far, because it connects with us. It connects with, you know, how we live in and how things work. But sometimes we don't realize how strong the way that we are raised, like how strong those qualities tend to be in the future and how that affects us or help us, you know, when we go out in the real world, when we go to college, when we go to, you know, jobs and everything. And I think this been one of my favorite, you know, topics to talk about. And also, I mean, we had amazing guests. We have Dr. Ronnie Bisco. We also have Isabel. And it was very hard, you know, I felt that in my heart that it was something that we needed to talk about. And I don't know, I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as we did. Do you want to say anything, Leah?
Yeah, and like it's sort of connected to our American dream. We're always trying to pursue for better things and our immigrant mindset, or just like our mindset to be better and to chase that American dream in general. It, like, all of our episodes are connected because this is what Latinos are living.
Yeah, and this is what we are, Latino Living, un podcast para todos. Before we go, remember to follow us on social media. On YouTube, you can find us at HSJA_NSULA, and on Instagram at hsja.nsula, and on Spotify as Latino Living.
Adios.
Adios.